Well, hey kids, today we're going to start a new series of videos, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this. There's always something that needs fed up here on Grandpa's farm in Alaska. A place where you're always welcome. Come on, Lily, let's go feed. We're going to take a look at the economics of actually starting a homestead and what it's going to entail. Been doing this a whole lot, been doing it my whole life, and I find myself in a position where obviously I'm going to have to start over again. And so I'm dealing with a lot of the same problems that most of you folks who are considering getting into homesteading are facing. I'm, basically having to start from scratch and start over again. Fortunately, I have, the experience and the knowledge behind me, and I thought I might share with you some of the realities of starting a homestead. Now, I'm thinking about some of the creators recently and some of the posts that they've been putting up about, how we feed a family of, 20 on $2 a month and, those kinds of videos. And they're great. And some of them talk about the benefits of the homestead and what that does for you and how it can save you a lot of money and, how you can live very cheaply, very frugally by maintaining your own homestead, raising your own food. Well, in this series, we're going to get down to the penny. We're going to start looking at the real economics behind all this. Lily, be quiet. She's unhappy because I put her in her pen because she kept knocking the camera over. So she has to just be in her crate for a little bit. Anyhow, we're going to look at the real economics of this. We're going to look at the money cost and what you're going to be faced with and what the reality of it is. I can tell you that it's expensive to get and start a homestead. It's very expensive to do that. However, the return on that investment, the ROI, if you will, and just so you know, I am a real estate broker now, but I used to be a stock jock. I used to be a branch manager for a major Wall Street firm. I have a sound basis in economic theory and finance. So I feel somewhat qualified to start discussing some of these figures and costs. And so we're going to take you through a spreadsheet and we're going to look at the cost of what is going to be involved. Now, I'm going to title this How I Fed Myself on $250,000 a year as a homesteader, and there's a certain reality to that because we're dealing with startup costs as opposed to long-term ongoing cost and the amortization of that initial investment so that we can, okay, let me make that simpler. You buy something once, but you get to use it for 10 years, right? It lasts 5 years, 10 years, whatever its life expectancy may be. So we're breaking that down. As an example, you have to buy property, but obviously you're going to live on that property for a long time. So that's known as depreciation and amortization. We say, okay, well, if we spend $1 buying that property and that property is going to last us 10 years, I know those aren't accurate figures. I'm just using an example here. If you buy a property, or let's say you buy an item, you buy this cell phone and it's going to last you 5 years before you buy a new one. Well, then you take the cost of that cell phone. Let's say that cell phone cost me $100. Well, I divide that over 5 years. My annual cost for that cell phone is $20. You follow? Okay, so we're going to be looking at some of those sort of things. A lot of these figures that I'm throwing out to you are what I have experienced for me personally. Your experiences may and probably will be very different. So let's not get hung up on, oh, well, that's too much for this, or I could do that cheaper. We're not looking at that right now. What we're looking at is what's it going to cost you to start a homestead, to buy the land and the equipment necessary to be able to develop a full family farm homestead where you're being self-sufficient. Especially if you're in stuff hits the fan mentality, what things you need to have in place in order to address those issues. Okay, so all right. As a bit of a disclosure here or caveat, I know there are certain people out there that are going to jump all over this with how smart they are and why I'm wrong on this, that, and the other thing, and that's fine, guys. If you are feeling that you need to do that kind of stuff, have fun with it. I'm not going to get all bent out of shape and have to stand up here and justify what my experience has been. Like I said, I'm saying, listen carefully. This is my experience. Your experience may be different. But I do think it's important that people understand the realities of what you're getting into. And there are a ton of things you can do to cut corners around a lot of these expenses that we're going to be dealing with, For example, a feed scoop. If you go out and buy a feed scoop, then you have the cost of a feed scoop. You take a used jug of oil and cut the bottom off of it and shape it into a scoop, you now have a free feed scoop. So there are things you can do to save yourself some money. I'm saying this is what I did, what I preferred for my lifestyle, for my quality of life, and it's going to be different than yours. And of course, there's lots of things you can do to shave off some of these dollars. And there's some things you just simply can't do, or you shouldn't do, for your life, health, safety, and the life, health, safety of your critters and the animals that you've got on your property. So, okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and get into some of the details. Now, I'm breaking this up because it's just too big a subject to deal all at one time. We could be here for a 30-day seminar, 8 hours a day for 30 days to deal with this subject. I'm going to break it up into little bits, not as small as a sniglet, but a little bit, a little manageable unit. And so we're going to take it maybe on a species basis. And to start out with, I'm going to start out with chickens, because chickens are well known to be the gateway animal to the homestead, to the family farm. This is the critter that tends to get most people started into this, and it's from there that you get sucked down this road of health and exercise and good quality of life. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into the details. Okay, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at chickens then. Please disregard that free trial icon stuck on the page. I'm testing this new software. I want to make sure it works, functions, everything properly before I spend the money to buy it. So if you can bear with me and just sort of ignore that, well, you guys know what I'm talking about. Okay. So talking about chickens. Now, in my particular example, I'm going to be going to Ohio so I can be closer to my sons, and I'm going to look at buying land there. I am looking for 40 acres. Again, what land you buy may be different, or you may own your land already, but you still need to do this accounting so you can have a better understanding of what those chickens represent to your homestead, okay? Or what all your critters or investments in your homestead equal to. In this case, I'm looking at buying 40 acres in Ohio. That 40 acres is going to cost me about $120,000. More or less, it'll vary. We'll find out eventually what it'll be. On that property, I'm going to build a 1,200 square foot house. It's going to cost me about $100 a square foot to build. Actually, it'll probably cost me less than that, but I'm using that as a baseline. It may cost a lot more than that. I'll save a lot of money because I'll be doing the construction myself. But you should figure on anywhere between $100 and $150 a square foot to build the house. So to build the house and to have the land, I'm looking at a cost of about $240,000. Now, $240,000 divided up by that 40 acres, that gives me a price of $6,000 per acre, or 14 cents a square foot. Now, that 14 cents a square foot is actually 13.774. It just rounded up to 14 here. In my example here, I'm looking at buying 24 chickens. Why 24? I like seeing a large flock of chickens, and I buy extra knowing I'm going to lose some to predators and shipping loss and what have you. But let's say we're going with 24 chickens. 22 hens and 2 roosters is what I typically like to buy. You can opt to simply buy the straight run from the hatchery, in which case you'll usually get about half and half and then butcher your roosters for meat. Or you can do as I'm doing here and buying 22 hens and 2 roosters. What you decide to do will certainly affect the outcome and the financial aspects what we're looking at here. So 24 chickens are going to require about 1,000 square feet of run, roost, and range. You have to build them a chicken coop to live in. That's their roost. They need a fenced area, enclosed area that's fenced, walls, ceiling, a roof, everything to keep predators out. And then they need an area to get out and scratch and eat and to free range. You can't have free range chicken eggs unless you let them out and let them be free on some range. 24 chickens will typically need about 1,000 square feet. I know there's all kinds of experts on YouTube here. They're going to argue about how much space you do or you do not need. Just bear with me, and you can adjust your figures as you find necessary. We also are going to look at the property taxes on that property, about $2,800 a year, $70 an acre, 0.0016 per square foot, or that 1,000 square foot is basically $1.60 is what we're allocating towards the chicken. So why are we going through this exercise? We're going through this exercise to get some real numbers on what it costs to be a homesteader, okay? You need to buy some land, you need to build a home or buy some land with a home on it, and you need to figure out what your cost is. Now, if you're going to have chickens on your homestead, what do those chickens cost you so that you can make an intelligent decision about what your return on investment is? Okay, so the chickens require 1,000 square feet of that land that you bought. That cost represents $137.74 is what their allocation is. However, that land is going to last a long time, so we have to depreciate that. We have to apply a life expectancy to that, and so our annual cost on that land is $4.59. Okay, so just so you follow, we buy the land, we know what it costs per square foot, we multiply that by how many square foot the chickens live on. That gives us our cost here, and then from there we take from that what the life expectancy is of that asset that we've acquired. In land, we use 30 years as a basic accounting rule. So that gives us a cost of $4.59 per year to have chickens on our farm. Okay, now we account for the property taxes. Again, that's $1.60. That's every year, so that stays the same. Now, for me, I'm going to go out and buy 24 black Oscillorps. I happen to like that breed. If you buy different breeds, it's certainly going to affect the pricing and all these numbers. But an example I'm using here, I'm buying 24 black Oscillorp chickens. They're a big, large, heavy bird, very pretty, very dark, blue-black feathers on them. And they're hold the record for laying the most amount of eggs for any particular breed, supposedly. Now, if I buy 24 of these from Murray McMurray Hatchery, it's going to cost me $105 to acquire those chickens, and that includes my shipping, and so that's going to be a one-time expense. Okay. Now, we also have to look at a chicken feeder. We need to buy a chicken feeder. Now, with chickens, you need to buy really small ones for baby chicks. You can't give them adult-size ones. Feeders, not so critical, although you'll waste feed doing that. Waters is critical because they'll drown in too big of an opening. In fact, I use a chicken water like you see here, but then I also put little rocks inside of it to reduce the area so the baby chick can't fall in that and drown, okay? I usually buy these from Walmart. I found them to be about the cheapest place to buy them up here in Alaska. You might have a Tractor Supply or other such farm or ranch supply facilities, Murdoch's or what have you, that you can pick those up at. Here in Walmart in Alaska, $6.87 is what it costs for a chicken feeder and $10 for a water. Those will last typically about 5 years. So $1.37 and $2 is our allocation figure. Now, we need to build a brooder. You need a facility to house those baby chicks to keep them warm and protected. I like to build, if you watch my videos, you've seen my little quail building. It is simply a insulated box with a hardware cloth, and hardware cloth is that wire mesh fencing stuff there, wrapped around a box, floor, walls, to give them an outside area. This way the baby chicks can stay inside where there's a heat lamp. They can stay warm. Their food and water stays in there warm and dry, but they also can get out a little bit, get some sunshine, get some fresh air, and start seeing the big world around them. I also like to build a good sturdy brooder like this because later on, as I have broody hens, I'm going to put that broody hen with her eggs inside of this brooder, and she can live in there comfortably and be protected from predators and the elements and the other chickens and stuff while she gets her eggs hatched and starts getting them going a little bit. A lot of the old time farms that I visited as a kid from people that have been doing this for, hundreds of years, the old farmers, this was a typical thing that farmers would do. They would have a free standalone brooder, which was a small cage up on posts. It had a sheltered area, and then it had a open area. Where we were in Ohio, they didn't have to have that sheltered area be heated, because typically the broody hens will go broody in the spring and hatch those babies out then, or during the summer when it's warm. Up here in Alaska, we still need to heat that to keep those baby chicks warm. So anyhow, to buy a brooder of that size is going to cost you about $150. I can build one for a lot less than that. It's going to last about 10 years, so we figure $15 for that. Let me scroll down because I'm probably getting covered up by their... I don't see in recording this that little thing there that they have that shows their free trial thing. So I got to work around that. So bear with me a little bit. Okay, so we have our brooder. Now we need to get a heat lamp in there, a lamp holder. It costs about $15. The bulb is $6.50. Again, that lamp holder is going to last you about 5 years, or cost about $3. The bulb is going to be something you're going to replace every year at least when you have baby chicks. Probably sometimes 2 or 3, because the chickens like to go up and peck them. The bulb goes out or breaks and you need to replace it. We're going to need some bedding in there. Now, I have this set up for, I said $40. That's not accurate. Let me change that to $20, because we're only going to buy one package, not 2. So one package of pine shavings, and here you can see what the pine shavings look like. $20. Okay. Then as the chickens get older now we have to buy them a larger feeder, because we're feeding more volume. So this adult feeder costs $15.79. And here you can see the water that we use. Actually, this one's kind of dirty, and I'm not using it right now, which is why it's dirty. I would obviously clean and bleach this before using it for my chickens. And this one cost about $35. Now, this only lasts about 5 years because, again, the ultraviolet light breaks down the plastic and they deteriorate and start falling apart here. So, and then there's the allocation for, $35 divided by 5 years, $7. All right, now we need to build them a chicken coop. My 24 hens, my 24 chickens, I'm going to build them something about 6 foot by 8 foot in size. It's going to be tall enough for me to walk inside. I've got a bad back, so I don't like bending over and stuff, so it's going to be tall. It's going to have some roofs up high so the chickens can get up there, so that when I have my heat lamp in my chicken coop, it warms up the top part of the chicken coop where they're living, and they can stay there and not, freeze off combs and toes and stuff. It'll have a man door. It'll have a window. It'll have a ventilation area that I can open and close. And then it'll have a predator-proof door for the chickens to go in and out of that I can lock up at night. I can close up at night. Typically, I find 2 grooves in a piece of wood and a heavy piece of metal that can drop down or hang up. Seems to work very effectively. In fact, on my chicken coop, I have the same piece of stainless steel. It's about 20 inches high and, a foot and a half wide. And this is the 3rd or 4th time I've used the same door on chicken coops. So it's stainless steel. It'll last me forever. I have no idea what I paid for it. But anyhow, to build your coop, you better figure on about $600. If you were to buy one, you can build one for a lot less than that if you have that skill set. It'll last about 20 years. So annually, I look at my coop as being a cost of about $30 a year. Okay. Inside that, I need to have some nest boxes. I can build them for $25. Now, a lot of these things that I'm talking about here, there are ways around all this. You don't need to buy, a feeder. You could use a food dish, if you want to do chickens. You can just throw the feed on the ground. I know a lot of old-time farmers that just go out and throw a scoop of feed on the ground, and that's how they feed their chickens. They don't have any fancy feeders. They don't have any fancy waters. They make a puddle someplace, and the chickens go to that puddle and drink. It's pretty simple. Old school ways, they didn't mess with a lot of this, stuff like we have as an expectation for ourselves today. Okay, let's move on. Poultry netting. I really like for fencing. I like the Premier One poultry netting. Now, I've used a number of different chicken wires and different types of fencing and horse fencing, whatever else, trying to contain chickens. The Premier One poultry netting, which is electrified, is without a doubt, hands down, the best protection you can have for your chickens from ground predators. Now, obviously, it's not going to protect you from owls and hawks and stuff, but one thing that's nice about the electric fencing is I have seen bears walk up to that fencing. Somehow they can sense there's electric in that, and they'll turn around and walk away from it. Even if there's the juiciest piece of bloody meat on the other side, that bear will not even try that electric fencing. It'll just turn around and leave it alone. It's very, very effective. Premier One poultry netting, I think it's 42 inches tall. It's 165 feet long. Cost $180 for a roll, and that includes the post to hold it up. I power that with a solar-powered electric fence charger. Even up here in Alaska in our short winters, that electric fence charger will work. That costs $280. I went out and bought a 5-pound feed scoop, as you can see here. You can simply take a bleach bottle or an oil bottle or whatever and cut it and make yourself a feed scoop and save some money should you choose to. I just bought one. I bought a 55-gallon drum with a removable lid, and I mounted a handle on the lid. So now I have a weather-tight, vermin-tight feed barrel to store feed in. And then we have to look at our utility costs for those chickens. We're looking at about $20 for the electric to run the heat lamps and tools and pumping water or whatever. About $20 a year is what I allocate. Okay. So to have my 24 chickens, I've spent $1,510 here. Let me get the right. Man, it's not doing it. Oh, well. Okay. Nope, not going to do it. Not cooperating. My program is just not working today. Ever have one of those days where your technology just ain't teching? My technology is not teching today. Okay, well, anyhow, so we have $1,510.16 is our cost to have our chickens. That's the infrastructure cost to have them, and I haven't gotten the first egg yet. Break that down to the life expectancy of all that equipment, and my annualized cost is $280.63. Hopefully you can follow that far along. If you have any questions about that, then please, bring them to my attention in the comments, and I'll take a look at that. Okay, now we have to feed our chickens. Let me scroll up here a bit. Chickens will typically eat 8 pounds of grain in the first 6 weeks of their life, from the time they're a little bitty until the time they are 6 weeks old. They will eat about 8 pounds of grain per bird. Now, once they're 6 weeks old, they really start getting out and free ranging and stuff. So we're not feeding them as much, even though they're a much larger animal and require a lot more food. We're not really feeding all that much. But in my example, what I do is I throw about a 5-pound scoop of chicken feed out to my 24 chickens. And that seems to be enough to sustain them and keep them in good shape. They go out and scratch around and eat bugs, insects, worms, whatever the rest of the time. Now, up here in Alaska, which is different than lower 48, I have to feed a lot more in the wintertime. In fact, I might take them up to 10 pounds of feed a day, or maybe 15 pounds. I free choice them. I give them all they want in the wintertime and let them eat all the food they can eat. So my figures here in the wintertime will be much higher than this, but I'm using this as my example. 5 pounds a day is 1,825 pounds of chicken feed a year. Yes, folks, that is almost a ton of chicken food to feed 24 birds. Basically, it's 36 and a half, 37 50-pound bags. Now, in my chicks, I feed approximately 1 bag of non-medicated, non-GMO organic chick starter. Up here in Alaska, that cost me $21.47. I will feed them 4 bags of pullet grower. That cost me $15.57, and then I will feed them layer after that, and that cost me $13.78. So my total feed cost my first year is $510.63. And let me roll that up. And year 2, I'm looking at $496 because obviously I'm not feeding the very expensive chick starter and pullet grower at that point. When mama hen is out running around with her baby chicks, if you have a lot of broody hens and you have a lot of chicks on the ground, you might want to throw some chick starter out when they're real young to help them get started because, it's hard for them to eat the adult size layer feed and it doesn't provide them with all the nutrients. But I find that the baby chicks with the mama hens usually seem to do pretty good all on their own. Okay, so let's look at our allocated startup cost. We have our infrastructure cost allocated annually at $280.63. And then we have our total feed cost of $510.93. I came from there. So my total cost for my first year for my chickens is $791 to feed them their first year. Now it's not even drawing. My texture's going to hell. Anyhow, $791. And I've not gotten the first egg yet. Now, up here in Alaska, sort of a sad story, we get our chicks in the spring. Just when we get to that time of year when they're old enough and they get to start laying, our daylight gets so short and our temperatures drop so precipitously that they don't lay for us. So I may get a few eggs in the fall. Very often I won't get hardly any. And they'll stop laying over the winter time, and then they'll start laying up in the spring. Yes, I know there's all kinds of supplements and lights and all kinds of things that I could do to increase their laying in the off season, and all that stuff may work in some of the areas of the lower 48, especially down the south. Up here in Alaska, it don't work. Done tried everything we could. It's too cold. It's survival mode, okay? When you have 3 weeks of minus 30 temperatures in the hen house, it's survival mode. They're not worrying about laying. I don't want them to lay. I want them to live. We keep a heat lamp out in our hen house all winter long to help, keep the worst of it away from them. But it gets cold here and stays cold for a long time. Okay, so I don't look to get eggs until my second year, and my second year, my figures are about the same. My allocated total startup costs are a little bit higher second year because I had, you break some stuff and whatever. You have some things you got to replace. So I kicked in an extra $20 for replacement items. But my feed cost is lower, so it ends up about the same, $796.71. So at the end of 2 years, I've got invested in my chickens $1,588.27. That's the initial startup cost divided, allocated for the 2 years, plus their feed cost for 2 years. Okay, but now here's where things get really good. Okay, black Australorps lay a lot of eggs. They say they lay, 340, 350, and I wouldn't doubt that. Those Australorps can be laying fools when you're down there in the lower 48 and you've got the right climate for them. I'm going to say I'm going to get 300 eggs, and I probably won't get that up here, but let's say you'll get 300 eggs down there. So 300 eggs, that's 6,600 eggs out of those 22 hens, 550 dozen eggs. That's right, more than a dozen a day, 550 dozen eggs per year. My total cost by the second year, I'm at $1.45 a dozen. With egg prices being around $3.50 a dozen, I think that's pretty darn good. Up here in Alaska, I can sell free-range chicken eggs, non-GMO fed free-range chicken eggs. I can sell them at $6 a dozen all day long at the farm market. I mean, literally, I could sell 150 dozen a day at the farm market. I couldn't possibly have enough chickens to supply the demand up here for free-range chicken eggs. There are so many people that are disappointed that we sell out, and we take eggs to the farm market and we sell out in, hour. In an hour, we're done. Everything we brought is gone. for eggs. So, okay, let's take a look at some of my notes. We anticipate that we're going to have our replacement breeding stock from our own birds. We're going to take a hen and rooster and put them aside so that we get just that breed of eggs. We typically will have a mixed flock. I'll have a lot of different chickens, but I like to have a hen and a rooster of each type of chicken that I really prefer, so I can get a little, purebred action going. I'll take that hen and rooster, I'll isolate them into a separate pen, keep them there for a week or two, and take all those eggs and eat them. And then after that, those eggs will then be used. Hopefully she'll get broody and she'll set on her own eggs then after they've been bred to a rooster of the same breed. We also like to have what's known as hybrid vigor, which is letting chickens of different breeds breed together and make a mixed flock. That tends to be a stronger, healthier, more robust chicken when you have what's known as hybrid vigor, which is from crossbreeding two different types of chickens or two different breeds of chickens together. Obviously, all costs are going to be affected by regional changes in material cost. Some costs will be affected by your infrastructure choices. You might decide to do a chicken tractor instead of doing a traditional coop, or you might have a garbage can to use for a feed barrel, or you might choose to do something different for a coop. You might have a spot in a barn already that they could be in. A lot of the choices that you make in your infrastructure are obviously going to affect your cost. The point is, you should go through this same kind of formula and calculate this out so that you know what you're talking about. Because in today's day and age, there's too many people out there spouting off their expertise about, I know how to do this, that, or the other thing. I'm really surprised at how many people have been doing this for a year and now they're an authority. Folks, I've been raising chickens every day of my life, and I'm 58 years old. When I was born, we had chickens. My sister, Terry, is allergic to store-bought eggs. I may have told you a story. Here in this video. My sister, Terry, was allergic to store-bought eggs, and so we've always had our own home eggs. Not that she was allergic to the eggs. She's allergic to the chemicals they wash the eggs in. So we've always had chickens. Okay, in this example, I'm looking at the old school method of building a chicken coop as opposed to a tractor. Different breeds of chickens will have different egg production numbers, and certainly their feed cost, their conversion ratio, we call that, their ability to convert that food to egg will be different for different breeds. Not calculated in here are any of the tertiary benefits of having old hens for, chicken and dumplings or chicken stock or soup hens. Then, of course, you also have the advantages of having their feathers, which can be composted and used in your gardens. The manures for fertilizing certainly are great. Insect reduction, garden preparation, all these things should be considered. And what's not addressed in here are the tools and the infrastructure to house those tools in order to build the infrastructure that we're dealing with here. So, okay, so that's kind of my little spiel on the accounting, and so let's go ahead and sum this up. Okay, so there we've had a pretty thorough look at the economics of having a homestead and raising yourself some chickens. I'm doing this in a multi-part series. I'm going to also then look at the cost of pigs, other poultry, cows, horses, the full gambit of what's really involved with having a farm. You cannot make good choices unless you have good facts, good details, good statistics to be looking at. You're going to have to make a real financial decision. This is much of an investment as if you were looking at buying stock. You're going to go buy stock at AT&T. You have to figure out, well, what's it going to cost to buy the stock and what's my return? What am I going to get for buying my stock? Is it worth my while doing that? And we're not just looking at the fact that the stock goes up, but we're also looking for dividends and what it can pay. The same holds true with your investment on your farm. What are the added advantages? Now, one thing we didn't talk about in looking at the numbers is another tertiary benefit is, okay, at the end of 2 years, you now have 24 adult chickens that are in good production. Those could easily be sold for, up here in Alaska, $15 a piece. People would pay for them, and so there's there's that economic value. And of course, a lot of the infrastructure figures is going to last longer than what we amortized it out to be certainly the land is going to last you more than 10 or 20 years. You know, once you buy a property and build your house, you're probably more like 50 or 60 years. And so as you change those numbers, as you adjust those numbers down to reflect that longer amortization schedule, that's going to have a big impact then in your cost per those dozen eggs. But anyway you look at it, though, here's the basic answer. It's a good investment. Chickens are a great investment. There's no other way of looking at it. Are you going to be able to recover 100% of your investment the first year on getting started with chickens? No. You're going to have to build a chicken coop and put some fencing up and buy all the necessary equipment necessary to start out chicks, and then take them to adulthood and nest boxes and, you know, a basket for carrying the eggs in and out of the house. You got to think about all these things because they all add up. Yeah, you absorb it little by little by little, and it's not like you got to go out and write a check, you know, for $2,000 so you can go have chickens. You start small and you build up. You don't necessarily need to have 24 chickens. Maybe 12 is a better number for you to start with. I will say this, in the case of all livestock animals, never get just one. You got to have at least two. You have one, it's going to get into trouble, and it's going to get to be a problem. You got to have at least two so they keep each other company. Preferably 3 or 4 because you're going to lose some. Now, typically when you order from the hatcheries, they ship them to you, you're going to have some loss in shipping. What does that mean? That means some of those chicks are going to die before they even get to you. Sometimes you'll order and they'll all come and they'll all be fine. Perfect. No problem. Especially up here in Alaska where I live as remote as I am, and it takes so long for stuff to get to me. We have a lot of losses. You know, the turkeys I ordered this year, you know, I ordered 20 turkeys. I ended up with 4 that lived. And most of those were either dead when they arrived or they died in the first day or two because of the stress that happened to them while they were being shipped up. They just couldn't recover from it, even with all of my efforts to help them. So you have to look at all those figures. Chickens are a tremendous investment for anybody. They are a great return on the investment. Cost savings on eggs is one thing, but then you have those animals, those birds that can be used for so many other things. Now we talk about unintangible, unfinancial benefits. Chickens are just a ball to watch. I could sit outside my chair and watch my chickens all day long. They go out and they scratch around in the ground and they coo and they cluck and they purr and they make all kind of funny sounds, and the roosters get all big and bad and they'll crow and they're just a bunch of fun to watch. They're great at reducing your blood pressure. They're great at allowing you to just chillax and relax outside, and certainly more entertaining than half the crap we watch on TV these days. Not the stuff on YouTube, mind you, but you know, all of the reality stuff that's on TV, especially all the Alaskan reality stuff. Folks, all that Alaskan reality stuff you see on TV, it is all contrived. None of that's true. Okay? None of that's true. They've asked me, you know, I'm a realtor up here. They want me to do the Alaska real estate reality shows all the time. I mean, like, I get calls at least once a month from some producer wanting me to participate, and I keep refusing. I don't need that nonsense, so I don't do it. Okay, so chickens are a great gateway animal to get into the Homesteading Act. I don't know what species I'm going to do next, but stay tuned. I'll be coming up with the next one here pretty soon. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I know it's a long one, a lot to go over. I'll try to get them a bit more concise and easier to deal with. I have a feeling people are going to have a lot of fun in the comments with this one. And, of course, everyone's going to beat me up over my figures and calculations and how wrong I am about everything. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever makes them feel good. I'm kind of over that, and will enjoy the humor of seeing all the comments. So please like and subscribe if you like this kind of thing. Please do share. Do know that I have set up a Patreon page. I'm a big supporter on Patreon. I support a number of creators, especially in the homesteading genre, and because I support the efforts that these people are putting out and the time, effort, energy it takes for them to make their content. If you support what I'm doing and, you know, care to kick in a buck or two, then, you know, feel free to go ahead and do that through my Patreon page, and I'll put a link in down below, so you'll have a link for that, like, you know, all the big creators do. How about them toad suckers? Ain't they sappy? Sucking them toads offshore make them happy. Hug 'em mugger toad suckers way down south. Sticking them sucky toads in zay mouth. I be a toad sucker knowing a duck it. Just find an old toad and you rear back and suck it. Folks, you have a good day. Bye.